welcome again to the Actors Vow. This is Denise Borratrapat. How are you guys? Okay, I'm going to be honest. I am stressed. I don't know if it's like because we've been in a pandemic for a whole year or just, personal life stuff. I've been doing a lot lately, but I'm just feeling stressed to the point that I'm like, I don't want to do anything. I just want to bundle up, grab a tea and, watch TV and a movie, which is something that I can't do right now. So I want to know if somebody else is feeling like that. I think the pandemic is affecting all of us at this point in a very negative way. Things in LA are getting better though. A lot of people are getting vaccinated. Yesterday, my boyfriend went out with a friend and he said things are reopening and things are getting better, but it's still here, so we will see where this goes. I'm seeing a bright future for like Broadway and the arts. The other day I was listening to a conversation, a casting director saying that they're doing a lot of things in Atlanta right now. So I think things are starting again, which is exciting and at the same time scary. I don't know if you guys feel like that too, but it's kind of become normal. The way we're living right now, at least for me, it's like, oh, now I'm used to being at home. It's gonna be so weird when things open up and like you can do normal things again and like go on set. So yeah, it's very exciting. Of course, not that I'm not excited about it, but I think it's gonna be like such a shock in a way for everybody. But anyway, enough about that. We have a very cool guest today, but before we get to her, I want to talk about the Oscar nominations that came out this past Monday. Nick Jonas and Priyanka Chopra did the nominations, which was fun. But I want to talk about it because I am very happy that Leslie Odom Jr. got nominated. Like, I literally almost cried. Like, I've seen Leslie start, with Hamilton when it was off Broadway to like meeting him at his album release. And he's such a down-to-earth, grounded person, talented, and he's had such a journey. If you haven't read his book, Failing Up, you should read it. But Leslie is such an inspirational person, and he's the epitome of like what the life of an actor is. He's been in this game trying and failing for years and years, and he's had incredible training. Like, he's gone to Carnegie Mellon. He knows what he's doing, and still it's taking him so many years to get here. And the fact that he got nominated this past Monday to the Oscars, this is such a big win for him, and I'm just very happy for him. I want to say I'm not like very surprised with the nominations. I mean, Mank killed it, got so many things. Borat got so many nominations. And I'm just gonna say, I don't want to get super into all the nominations, but I'm just gonna say I'm upset because I'm thinking about Ending Things didn't get a single nomination, not even a mention, not even like, if someone from the Academy wants to explain to me why, that would be great. Thank you. That's just what I want to say about the Oscar nominations. I'm thinking about Ending Things. And if you haven't watched that movie, I've said it so many times in this podcast, please go to Netflix and watch it. One of the best movies I've seen in a very long time. Also, I want to say, I know last week I mentioned that I was thinking about watching Coming to America 2, and I don't want to make this long either, but I did watch Coming to America 2, and it was just, and also just the fact that the main character, I don't even remember his name, Hakeem, whatever. The main character basically got like date rape. Like, are we gonna talk about that? But okay, Coming to America 2, not worth it. Just don't do it. So, having said that, I want to introduce our guest this week. This week's guest is Shannon Bills, and I loved having a conversation with her, not only for her years of experience in the industry, which is awesome. She was an actor for 10 years. She was a child teenage actor, which is very, very cool. We haven't had a lot of those in the podcast. And she was a casting associate for 7 years. So she's had experience in the audition room, both as an actor and in the casting side of things. So her input is very, very useful. But what I love about Shannon is that right now, during the pandemic, she changed her whole career just to follow what felt right at that moment. She followed her intuition. She was able to, give up a job that was going great, and she probably could have gotten to be a casting director at some point, and it's stable, to building her own business, because that's what she discovered gave her joy. And I think that's something so many of us actors and artists can learn about. We, I think, many times get stuck in this idea that things have to go a certain way, and sometimes those things stop making us happy, and we continue to do them because that's the story we have created in our heads. Shannon now is a coach. She has her own business. She is an audition, mindset, career coach. And that's another thing that I loved about her. I know a lot of acting coaches that just work on the technical aspect of auditioning and acting. I think the most important thing any actor can work on, more than the technique and the craft, which yes, are essential. Please don't understand this wrong. Yes, you have to learn the technique and craft, but all that without mindset, it's going to be a struggle. The mindset part as an artist needs to be worked on every single day. It is very hard to be in this tough business that we're in if you don't have the right mindset. So that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to bring Shannon here, because she is very, very mindful about mindset and affirmations and all these things that I think are essential to have a successful and healthy acting career. I don't think Shannon needs further introduction, so let's welcome Shannon Bills to The Actor's Vow. Welcome, Shannon, to The Actor's Vow. I'm so thankful you're here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to get to chat with you today.
So, okay, my first question I always ask is, what made you want to be an actor? Because you were an actor before you did casting and coaching. So what was that for you?
Yeah, so I just have always loved performing ever since I was a kid. And I find that, actually, no, this isn't true. I know that there's some people who discover that love later in life, but I also know that there's people who are like, oh, I've known since I was a kid. And really, I would watch, The Wizard of Oz, or even animation like The Lion King, and just be singing it and performing it in my living room. And it just was something that always made me feel so good. And so my parents, they were fortunate, or I was fortunate enough to go to Broadway. I'm from New York originally, so I would see Broadway shows a couple of times a year, and started seeing them when I was maybe 5 years old. And so I was just exposed to it at a young age, and I love that my parents, who both are not actors, did not come from a performing background, but just loved Broadway, really got to treat me to this live performance. And it was just so magical. And even to this day, musical theater will always be like one of my absolute favorite things. I just love the feeling of watching it. I love the feeling of performing it. I love the feeling of hearing it. I just think it's kind of an indescribable feeling, being any sort of creative and wanting to, perform your talents, give your talents to somebody else. It's just this fire inside of you that it's really kind of hard to describe.
Right. And you got so lucky that you got to go to Broadway. Like, so many of us just dreamt of it for all our lives, right? And you were so close to it. And then when you went to high school, did you do theater? How did you start into acting?
Yeah, so in middle school, I started taking acting classes, musical theater classes, acting for the camera. I in addition to that, was doing singing lessons and dance lessons. And so I worked with different acting schools as I was a kid, and ended up getting an agent and a manager in New York City, and went on auditions all the time. I was still a minor, so
as a teenager,
my parents would have to take off work, and we'd get on the train, go to an audition, and it was like you'd travel an hour, train ride, and then you have to either take a taxi or a subway to the audition, and it would be about 3 hours of traveling back and forth for maybe a 5-minute audition, which I'm sure a lot of people can resonate with. So yeah, I really got in the flow of that then, and I did all of my middle school and high school plays, the musicals, and It was just something that I really loved.
That's awesome. And then how did you get into casting then from being an actor?
So I wanted to be a musical theater major. That was always my goal. And I thought I was going to be a musical theater major. I was auditioning at all of these different colleges. I had been practicing these auditions for a long time. And I came across a school called Wagner College, and I really, really loved it. Fell in love with it, and I knew that that was the right school for me. I just had this gut feeling. But that also meant I just had to put a pause on all the other auditions I was having at all these other schools. So I knew I wanted to go to this school, and I knew that they had a big audition day coming up, but I didn't realize they only had one audition day, like other schools had multiple. So I had kind of missed the boat on that, and I was so sad because I was just like, what do you mean? This is how it was supposed to happen, right? Like, I was supposed to be a musical theater major going into college. And so that day was a sad day for me, but it really is kind of what changed my path. And I decided to explore the business side of it. We were very fortunate school to have great internship programs. We were only a short little ferry ride from New York City. And so I kind of ran with it and started interning for a talent agency. I interned for a publicist and for a late night TV show, Conan O'Brien. And then my last internship was with casting, and I loved it. I really fell in love with it because it was a big office that did a lot of musical theater still. So I felt like I got some fun aspect of that in my life still. And then it opened doors to what casting a movie's like, casting a TV show, casting commercials. So I really got that full experience, and I just fell in love with it.
Wow. So what was it exactly that you studied in college? Because I've never heard of that degree.
Yeah. So the degree is technically a business degree, but the major is called arts administration. And basically it just is this pretty broad term because there's so many things you can do within that. So I had friends who were artists or wanted to be art curators, so they worked for museums, but that fell under arts administration. I had friends who wanted to do TV production. I had friends who wanted to do more like stage management for Broadway, friends that wanted to work in radio. So it was almost like communications degrees, which most people are familiar with, but it really was just cool how connected we were to all of these different internship places in New York City. So you would see a wide variety of students picking different career paths within the arts, the entertainment industry or the arts.
That sounds really cool. I get asked so many times, like, how does one become casting director or an agent? And it's like, sometimes, like, you just go there as a helper, then you move up. But like, I didn't know they had actual degrees where you could intern in that. And that's so much fun.
Yeah. It was really cool. Yeah, I mean, it really set me up for my career.
Yeah. Okay, so then you became a casting director. And how was that? What did that teach you about acting that you didn't know when you were an actor?
That's a really good question. So I fell into casting, worked my way up. I left as a casting associate. There's different levels to casting. So you're an assistant for a few years, you're an associate, and maybe you want to stay as an associate, and then you become a casting director. And so my last few years, I was an associate. I worked under my two casting directors at my office. But it's a great question. I think what it taught me was when I was an actor, I would go into these auditions thinking that casting was judging me and that they, whether they wanted me to do well, wanted me to mess up, wanted me to just be this perfect whatever. I just felt like they were thinking about me the way I was thinking about them. And then being on the other side of it, when it becomes your livelihood and you are just auditioning hundreds of people a day, and it's just, I'm trying to think of how to word this, but on the casting side of things, we're not thinking about that. We're just doing our job, right? We're helping you get this role, and we're going to press play on a camera, and we're going to read the sides, and it's just kind of a pattern to us. So like, we're never thinking of like, oh, like the pressure that the actor's thinking. Like, it just, I guess that's the best way I could describe it. It's just that like, this is casting's job, right? And like, they want you to do well, but they're not these big scary people, right? They're just like are doing their job, but actors feel like they are these intimidating people who could make or break their career, you know? So it's kind of fun being on the other side of things and going, oh no, we're just normal people, just like you.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I always say that, like, don't take things personally. I feel like actors do that so much. You know, you don't get cast or a look in the room, a comment, or they look at their phone, whatever it is. And we always think it's us, right? And it gets just so scary. And I think it's what you're saying. It's not. It's not you.
It's not. It's really never that, you know? And I think just in general, being a creative, we put so much pressure on ourselves, pressure to perform to the best that we can, pressure to be liked by people. And when you take that pressure away and you're just doing it freely, you're going to enjoy the experience so much more.
Absolutely. What are other things that you saw in the audition room that you were like, common errors actors did?
I would just say, and I really talk about this a lot, is how I always joke saying, oh, their mindset was showing. And what I mean by that is the energy that you bring into that office, from sign-in to waiting to the audition room, we can feel it. Or at least I'm very empathetic, and I intuitively can just feel a lot of energy. And so I found that it was more likely than not when an actor would come in either nervous, frantic, overly confident. Like, it was always a sweet but yet uncommon thing when someone can just come in and just be and just do their job and like not have a worry in the world. Like, you can feel that energy. And so I always say, like, you know, I'm really big on mindset, and now I'm this mindset coach too, but I don't even want to say it's a mistake. It just would make me sad when I would see actors really letting it affect their day, whether it was really, really positive or really, really negative. It just was this big thing for them. And it shouldn't have to be this big thing. Like, don't give an audition that much power. Don't give casting that much power. Let it all just flow. Let it all just be. So that to me is like the biggest thing that I strive home when someone asks me a question like that. Like, what is the biggest thing that you would see in the room? Because I also would say, on a daily basis, actors were just doing their job, right? They were performing and they'd leave. I don't have that many crazy stories where an actor, you know, ripped up the paper and walked out. Like, that doesn't happen, you know? So I have a few stories where it was like, well, that was an interesting experience, but most of the time it's a very normal exchange. The biggest thing that I just witnessed all the time was the energy they were giving off that felt a little too haywire.
Wow, I've never heard that from casting directors. It's so interesting. I mean, you hear it all the time from actors. They tell you, you know, like, I can't let it go after the audition. It just, my whole week then it's ruined because I did a terrible audition. But you never think about it. You guys can see it too.
Oh, yeah. It's so true. The energy just transfers.
Totally. The energy is always transferring. And that's why I'm really big on inner work, because we're all made up of energy, and everything that we see and feel is energy. And so we're just kind of reacting to the different vibrations that people are giving off.
Yeah. And that's why you became a mindset coach. Can you tell us about that journey?
Yeah, so it's a fairly new journey still. I was with my casting office for almost 7 years. Oh, wow. And I knew the last few years of casting that I wasn't going to be a casting director. I had this inner knowing that something else was going to come along. I always felt like I was going to be my own boss. I just didn't know what that looked like. And finally it hit me like a ton of bricks one day. I basically saw this vision of what I was meant to do, and all of this self-love and intuitive work that I had been doing on myself. I knew that it was kind of my purpose to bring that work to actors. And so quarantine happened and all of our shows shut down. And I basically took that as a really big sign that, hey, this is the time you do it, because you don't have any shows distracting you right now. You're not working for anyone right now. This is it. And so I started it, didn't really have crazy expectations, in the sense that I wasn't fully scared that, oh, I have to start from scratch and start a new Instagram and like get word out, and where I think that would be scary for a lot of people. I think what was just scary is saying, oh my gosh, am I fully leaving a job that I love, that was a consistent paycheck? Like, that was the scary thing for me. And so in the summer, I had the opportunity to go back to casting. Some of our shows were getting picked up, and I had the biggest like lump in my throat, because I knew my gut was telling me, no, you don't go back. This is it. You committed to this. Let's see this through. And this is what makes you feel good. And after going back and forth with my casting directors, my bosses for the last almost 7 years, they were very, very respectful about it and so kind. And they were like, hey, like, go for it. Do it. You know, like, there's not really a world where I could have done both, because this has become my full-time job, and I'm very fortunate to be doing it. So yeah, I basically am trying to bring more self-love awareness to actors and self-worth awareness, because just as an actor, being, you know, growing up as an actor and being someone that was guilty of throwing away my power to somebody else, and then now witnessing it from a casting point of view, seeing the actors throwing away their power, it was like, I've seen all sides of it. I've felt all sides of it. And I want to put an end to that. I want actors to really see how powerful they are and trust their choices and go on with their day, living their best lives. And so that's kind of how this all started for me. And so I guess like a couple of my clients kind of joke, being like, you're this holistic acting coach, right? Like, I'm not necessarily teaching you how to act, because my whole way of doing things, even in my acting workshops, because I still coach actors on auditions. I still love doing that. And especially comedies, coming from comedy world, I can work on comedy sides with my eyes shut. It's very easy to me. So I still offer that to people, but I try to get them to bring out more of themselves and trust their choices and feel good about who they are. And that could feel simple for some people, but it could also feel like a big task for people who are so used to giving that power to somebody else. And I welcome all types of people who are struggling in some way.
Yeah, and I love that in your own journey, you trusted yourself. I think that during quarantine and the pandemic, so many of us had that moment, you know, we had that break from our job and it's like, okay, this is a sign. And then we had the opportunity to go back. And I think many people went back because that's the easy thing to do. And sometimes you have the feeling, but listening to it is hard.
Yeah, I think that is the biggest thing you can do for yourself is step away from comfort. And I think we're so used to living comfortably. We want things that make us feel safe, that make us feel secure, that is, you know, bringing stability. That is how most of us are raised. Yeah. But if you are choosing to be a creative, you are also choosing to see the end goal and see the opportunity. And with that comes fear, and working through fear and committing to work through it. And that is where you see a lot of people saying, okay, well, I have the faith that I can do this, but I'm not taking the action. And I'm all about having both. You have to trust that you can do it, but you also have to take the action towards it, you know?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, a lot of us is like waiting for a sign. It's like, okay, well, if it happens, it's meant to be. If not, well, you have to put the work in. For sure, I agree. So you're saying you were like an intuitive, holistic coach, and I love that you put those two together because I think actors, like, we're all very intuitive too. We work with those emotions. So what are like the practices you use with your clients?
That's a great question. So I also love that you mentioned that actors are intuitive as well. Anybody's intuitive, but I think actors, artists, they are this open vessel, right? They are needing to channel emotions on the fly. And that comes with being empathetic and digging deeper into who you are. So really what I start with, I created a method called Find Yourself First. And I do this in one of my intensives, which I call Unlocking Your Authenticity. Basically, getting you to show up for yourself in your scenes, in your meetings, in your daily life, showing up for you, making you the number one priority with everything that you do as a creative. And so the first step is kind of just figuring out who the heck you are, because you're so many things. Actors are not just actors. There's so many things. I'm not just a coach. I'm not just a casting associate. I'm not just a wife. I'm not just a daughter. Like there are so many things that make us who we are. And so I think getting actors to realize that and open up just takes the ease, the pressure off of, I'm only an actor and I can only think and do and breathe and say acting things. You don't have to do that. You shouldn't do that. You should, like live life with many different purposes in life, So like I said, first step is kind of figuring out who you are. And then a lot of it too is releasing limiting beliefs, these negative self-patterns, self-talks that are just showing up in your head over and over, and they're showing up for a reason. It means you need to heal from them, and you need to release them from your body and prove that those things are just lies you made up one day and still are choosing to believe is true. So I would say that is the biggest two things we focus on. We focus on a couple of other things and journal prompts every week. There's so much that goes into it. I deal with chakra healings. I deal with intuition and getting people to wake up to their intuitive gifts and learn to tap into that. There's so much that I have learned on my self-love journey, which is ongoing, and I'll have the rest of my life. And so I'm just trying to bring everything that I've learned to this community.
I love that. And it's so important for actors, like going back to the first thing you work, like knowing yourself. I think we're in such an industry that they're always telling us who we are. Like your agent tells you what type of actor you are, casting directors what they want. And it's so easy to get lost in that. And also like what others want from you. I mean, when I worked in New York, I didn't see it as much. But here in LA, I see it all the time. Like actors just wanting to look and be what others want them to be. And it's such an error. You're going to end up not in your best version of yourself, and it's just not going to work. They think that's how it's going to work, and it's going to be a very sad journey for you.
Yes, that's a beautiful way to put it. That's exactly what it is. I think people get so lost in the process of trying to be what they think others want from them. And that's really not the case at all. And if that was a story you were telling yourself, you can change that story at any time. You're going to feel more empowered if you do.
Absolutely. What do you think is the biggest struggle mindset-wise for actors?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. I think it's the comparing others. I think that can get in the way of anyone and everyone. I would be lying if I said I haven't compared myself to people. It's just part of life. Yeah, we all have done it. So I think that's a really big one. I also think the I'm not good enough, or I'm not working hard enough, or I'm working too hard and nothing's showing up for me. I mean, there's so many mindset struggles that people deal with, and I actually have an intensive where I kind of go through a lot of the recurring struggles that an artist might face. I call it mastering your mindset, because it's just, you're never gonna completely let go of fear. It's always gonna show up some way, somehow. Always. It just is. Like, I still have my bad days too. And so what I'm trying to teach people is hey, let's focus on the love. When that fear shows up, if you need to feel it for a little bit, sure, let yourself feel it, but don't let it cripple you, and don't let it ruin your day or tell you, things that are defining you. Instead, focus on the love and rewrite that story for yourself. So that's kind of like the simplest solution. Of course, there's a lot that goes into it, but when it comes to mindset work, it's not a quick fix. It never will be. It's not, here's the answer. It's, here's a few ways that this has helped me, and now work on these things every day. Make it part of your routine. It's routine.
Yeah, it's about giving the tools, and that's what you do, right? You give them the tools that when it shows up, because what you're saying, it will always show up. Like audition anxiety, that's one that they always bring up, actors, right? It's like, that's probably never gonna go away. Like there's always gonna be those nerves, but if you have the tools, once you get there, you'll know how to not get rid of it, because you don't want to just suppress it, but at least understand like why it's coming up, right? And how to manage it in a healthy way.
Exactly.
How would you, for example, help an actor with audition anxiety?
Yeah, so again, there's a lot that goes into this. I think you want to break down, what is it that you're actually afraid of? Are you afraid of people judging you? Are you afraid that you're going to mess up the scene? Are you afraid that you are not going to be what they want? Really break those beliefs down and prove them not true. Well, I'm not going to mess up a line because I practice it, right? And I know that I'm doing this career for a reason. I have these passions and desires for a reason. And I know that casting is going to respond to me because I honestly think I'm a great fit for this role. And so it's just kind of looking at this fear and breaking it down and dissecting it and going, okay, this is not true. Let's reframe this. Let's reprogram this story in our brain. And again, it's easier said than done, and it's going to take some discipline. So show yourself grace and compassion during this time, because it might come up, but it's really all about choice. You have the choice to think and feel from a place of fear, but you also equally have that same choice to show up and feel and think from a place of love. So when I find that I'm having a day where I'm all over the place or I'm in a bad mood, I will literally say to myself, okay, Shannon, do we want to carry this feeling throughout the rest of the day? Or do we want to turn it around and just say, that was the morning, the afternoon's going to be different for me? And I literally did this like 2 days ago. My internet was going crazy. I had 7-8 hours worth of Zoom calls, and I was like frantic. I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get these calls done? This is ridiculous. So I was eating lunch, and I literally said, okay, do we still want to bring this nervous energy to people that are coming to you for guidance and help? Or do we want to just take a deep breath, choose to feel love, choose to feel comfort, choose to feel calm, and let's carry that the rest of the day? So you could do this with anything. You have that choice,
I love that. And that has been personally such a big lesson for me too. I used to be like that, like something happened in the morning, I would carry it till night. It would be the worst day. Today's such a bad day. And it's those negative thoughts, like it's all in your mind, and it's how you talk to yourself too. And you keep repeating, this day is just terrible, it's terrible. And of course, terrible things will keep happening if you think that. But you find the ways. For me, it's been like meditating. When I find myself in such a negative space, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go sit down, meditate 10, 15 minutes, whatever I need, and then just let it go. And that's so helpful. And I think for actors in auditions with anxiety, what you said before about you're not only an actor is very important. Because the anxiety sometimes, it's like, if I don't get this audition, I'm not good enough, it's the end of the world. It's like, well, if you have other things too that you care about and you're passionate about and that you are, it's not the end of the world.
Totally. Yeah. You really, like I said, you have that choice to find a quick fix. And quick fixes are, yes, short-term fixes, but over time it becomes a routine, it becomes a habit, and then it becomes a belief in your head. So little quick fixes over time amount to something really, really big. So if you just start to even create an awareness around your thoughts and awareness around how long you're sitting with fear-based thoughts. And you're now choosing, okay, I'm noticing this. I'm going to see what it feels like to come from a place of love and see what that feels like. Oh, this is working for me. Great. Next time this comes up, I'm going to do it again. And then it just becomes easier and easier over time. So it's really just...
And it becomes a habit too.
Yes, exactly. It becomes a habit. What it comes down to is you're checking in with yourself. That mindset, that's, I always say this too, like, the number one person you're going to have the most talks with in life is yourself. It's that mindset. It's that voice in your head. And so why not really work on that and get that to be strong and positive? Because once that's good and once you're feeling good, that's when everything starts to align and show up for you. Your desires really start to pop up out of nowhere. That's kind of like the start of manifesting.
Absolutely. And it's so sad that like so many of us have such negative conversations. It's so true what you're saying. It's that thing like, would you say that to someone else? So why would you say it to yourself? And
exactly.
I think you always have to ask yourself that. So you're very also into mindfulness, you're saying. I saw that on Instagram you did like a mindfulness challenge. Can you tell us some tips that people like actors can do at home?
Yeah, of course. Always happy to talk about that. So mindfulness to me is just like, how can I actively give or return love to myself? What is something that makes me feel good? So you can start by writing a list of things that make you feel good. Is it going outside? Is it petting your dog? Is it buying yourself flowers? Is it going to the beach, getting ice cream, watching a movie, taking a nap, taking a bath? There are so many things that probably fill your cup, whether you realize it or not. So I think a good starting place is start with a list. Figure out what feels good to you. And then throw a little challenge at yourself and say, I'm going to do one thing a day that makes me feel good. And maybe you can do even more than that. I challenge you to do more than that. And it shouldn't feel like effort. It should feel fun and it should feel good. And I think so many people are used to either giving, and then they're running on empty all the time, or they're focusing all their attention on, for example, if you're an actor, you probably tend to focus a lot of your attention on, I got to submit to these agents' managers. I want to do this workshop and this workshop. I need to learn this monologue. I want to work on my reel. I need to edit this self-tape. I want to do this podcast. There's so many things. And then again, you're going to run on low, on empty. You need to fill your cup up and give yourself some love. And that is not a selfish thing. That is something that's going to help you in the end, because who wants to be giving or working towards something when there's nothing left inside of them? You want to actively be filling up your cup. I know I keep saying that, but giving yourself love and showing yourself grace. And that way you can give yourself your best self to somebody or to something. That's how that works. So yeah, I think a good place to just start is figure out what makes you feel good and just pick one thing a day to do.
Yeah, I mean, and to be honest, not just, in the business part of acting, that's hard, but also you've experienced it, I bet, as an actor, like playing emotional characters. And then if you don't have that self-love part, you end up, like rehearsing all day, and then you're emotionally drained and you don't know how to get back to being you. And that just transfers day after day after day, and especially if you do the theater, then you have to perform the same every day. It's so important to be able to go home, let go of the emotions, and fill your own cup.
Yeah, exactly. And it sounds like such silly, easy things, but you have to do them. I could talk about it all the time with somebody, and if they don't take action around it, they're not going to see the amazing effects from it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have 3 short questions for you.
Sure.
The first one is, tell us 3 things that make you smile, that put a smile on your face.
Oh, I love that. Okay. This is such a silly one, but my friends joke and say I light up every time I talk about it, and that's food. I love food. I love food so much. I love snacks. I love going out to dinner. I love my husband's he is the cook in the house, so I love when he makes me meals. Like, I love food so much. So I know that's probably something you wouldn't expect me to say. That's not acting related, but I just love food. I also love the sun. I love feeling the sun on my face, whether it's on a walk, by a pool, at the beach, even just beaming in through my car. Like, that is something that can always turn my mood around and make me smile and make me happy and even make me feel really grounded. I love that. And honestly, I love my not just one-on-one sessions. I love being in my purpose. That is something that makes me so happy, because there's not a single day I feel like I'm working. Yes, my body physically gets tired after working 8-9 hour days over Zoom, but I'm loving it. And like, it just makes me feel so good. And I love working with so many different people. And I felt like I feel like every client I have is my friend now. And I feel like I have so many friends since quarantine started.
That's awesome. I love what you said, your purpose. And I think it's very important that your purpose should never feel like a burden. Many times we're like, this is what I'm meant to do, but they're struggling and you see they're so sad. And it's like, maybe that's not it. Like, it has to be something that makes you happy and feels easy. And, it's hard work, but it has to feel easy. Like, it just comes.
Yes, exactly.
My second question is, tell us 2 movies that you could watch anytime.
Ooh, okay. Honestly, this is so silly, but I feel like any Christmas movie I can just watch over and over again. Like, literally any Christmas movie. Like, The Grinch. I love The Grinch. I love The Santa Claus. That's probably my favorite one. But, like, any Christmas movie, I could just watch it with fresh eyes every time. And I know that's cheesy, but I just love Christmas movies. And okay, I'm trying to think here. I also really just love, it's interesting with TV shows, I find that I'm more drawn to dramas like Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, Ozark. Like, that is something that I just like cannot wait. I just love watching all of that. But movies, I tend to like I don't want to say basic comedies, but in the sense that like Step Brothers will always make me laugh. Wedding Crashers will always make me laugh. Mean Girls will always make me laugh. Like, those are movies that like I've probably seen over 100 times at this point, but I love it. It still puts a smile on my face,
Yeah. Well, those are feel-good movies, right? Like, if you're having a down day, you grab a snack, you watch the movie, and everything's better.
And my last question is, tell us 1 book that you'd recommend to any actor. It can be acting or it can be not acting.
Yeah, I actually have a lot of books here.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to think. The book I'm reading, one of the first books I read that I really loved, because reading was actually something that I never liked. Up until this year, I got into it more this year, and I'm still trying to get better at it, because I have books over there, I have books over here, I have books in my bedroom, and like, I am notorious for like reading a few chapters and then I'll put it down and then I'll pick up another book, and so it takes me forever. But this book I read in 2 days, because they're short little poems, and a lot of them are about self-love. A lot of them are about healing and inner work. And I just found it really beautiful. And I actually bought so many copies, and I now gift them to some of my friends whose birthdays come up. I give this gift to everybody. It's called Chameleon Aura. And it's by Billy Chapata. I don't know if that's how you say it, but I just loved how easy it was to read, but also how impactful it was. Like, every single message, I was like, yes, this is amazing. I feel so good. And I just feel like this is a really good book that doesn't get fully into if you're new to spirituality or new to intuition, I know that can be like a really big thing for somebody. And like, I have so many books that focus mainly on that. And I feel like this is a good starting book to just show yourself some love and heal through relationships and heal through beliefs. And there's just so many wonderful, empowering poems in this too. So yeah, Chameleon Aura is probably what I would recommend.
And you can read it fast. I always say you have to bring a book on set because you're going to be waiting forever. So that's a good option.
There you go. You'll read it in one day. Totally.
All right. So tell us where people can find you and work with you.
Yeah, so my website is just my name, shannonbills.com. And you can find me on Instagram, which is Shannon Bills Coaching. And that's probably the best places you can find me. You can email me at either of those platforms. And I have lots of different ways you can work with me. I do one-on-one sessions, whether you want to focus on intuitive work, mindset work, or just straight up acting and auditions. I do all of that. I do group classes. I have a meditation that I lead every single month. I have some fun products coming out in the next few weeks that are just feel good, high vibe products. Some are behind me. But I am really excited about that. So I will be announcing that probably the first week of March. And yeah, stay tuned for any sort of group classes I offer. Some classes I do for free. Some classes are a little bit more work on my end. So I do one on mindset. I do one on journaling for people who don't know how to journal. I do a class on co-star roles and how easy it is to actually book a co-star role. So I really try and blend all of my worlds together, mainly focusing on the self-love and the intuition and the mindset, but recognizing I do have a casting background and I do have a lot of info to offer. So here and there, I'm definitely coming out with some acting workshops as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And thank you for sharing all this with us and joining us today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Hello guys, it's me again from the studio in LA. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Shannon. Don't forget to follow Shannon on social media and visit her website. She actually just got her website renewed and it looks amazing. So thank you again, Shannon, for coming here and sharing all this amazing knowledge with us and this beautiful conversation about mindset and all these things that all actors should be doing. Before we end the episode today, I want to bring the play of the week. And today I want to bring a personal favorite. It's a comedy and it's a classic. I personally have such trouble finding comedies, especially from like classic plays. I think contemporary is easier, but I always find myself that I want to do a contemporary drama, but I find it easier to do a classic drama than a classic comedy. But that's just me. I don't know if that's how you guys feel too. The point is, I love Molière. And the play I want to talk about today is Tartuffe. It really is a classic and it is very well known, but I don't think it's as done as a Shakespeare would be. So it's also a great choice if you want to do auditions with it. There's many beautiful monologues and dialogues and it's really well written. I mean, the original is in French, so if you can read French, go ahead and read the original, but there are incredible translations in English. I personally think it's such a funny play. I remember when we read it in acting school, a lot of my classmates that of course were American didn't find it that funny or didn't get it, so it might be a very European French humor, but I think it's hilarious and it's something that I think any actor should read at least once. So Tartuffe by Molière. It also has incredible like political and societal critiques in it. So I think that's why it does such a great job at being like a satire of society back then. It is very, very cool and it seems like contemporary in many ways, even though it was written so long ago and it's written in verse. And I think that's like the best place, right? Those that, even though after many years, are still so relevant. So again, that is Tartuffe by Molière. And this will be all for this week. As always, please remember to subscribe on iTunes and leave a review. It's very, 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 very helpful for the podcast. Also follow the podcast on social media, The Actor's Vow. I'm always giving tips and we do lives on Instagram. And we have the interviews with video on YouTube. And also there's so many cool things and so much new content coming out on TikTok. So if you have TikTok, don't forget to follow The Actor's Vow on TikTok. I hope you guys have an incredible rest of your week, and I will see you next Wednesday.